All right, well, everyone, welcome to the weekly collaborative. If you haven't joined us before, we do this every Thursday at 11 o'clock Central Time. Typically, it's a rather casual event where we just talk about what's going on in the collaborative and open it up for questions and talk with the members about, what they're doing and what they want and need from us. Occasionally, like today, we have a special event and a guest in to talk about some area of importance to us. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Kathleen Grave today. It's funny, as I was preparing for this interview, I went through Dr. Grave's profile on LinkedIn again, and then when I got to the bottom of it, where the recommendations are, lo and behold, there was one from me out there from 2007. When we worked together at IBM, and I not only I talked about what a great leader and collaborator she was back then, and then the last line was I would jump at the chance to work with her again, and 13 years later, here we are. So welcome, Dr. Grave. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, and likewise, you were the really smart guy I got to work with, so that's great.
Well, I pull the wool over on you today. So Dr. Grave has addressed some really big challenges in her career. She was with IBM for over 15 years in a variety of leadership positions, executive positions across multiple divisions of IBM. The one that I'm most jealous of was her time in the Watson group. If you're not familiar with Watson, Watson is IBM's artificial intelligence and machine learning engine that has been applied across a lot of different industries, including healthcare. And Dr. Grave ran worldwide sales and strategic alliances for Watson. Just phenomenal work there. And then, in the true spirit of the collaborative, she just didn't keep this kind of knowledge and wisdom to herself. She's also an academic and an educator. So Dr. Grave has her PhD from the University of Liverpool in strategic management. And she's been a professor, adjunct professor at the Pepperdine Graziadio Business School for about 16 years, I think. And she also sits on the board of the Graziadio School and is in the co-chair of the annual Future of Healthcare Symposium. So somebody who's highly credentialed in business, highly credentialed as an educator, and someone who I think you're going to really enjoy our session today. So I'm gonna ask everyone to mute their microphones and use the chat box liberally, and we'll get to as many questions as we can later or live. And but let's just get into it. We've got a lot to cover. So, Dr. Grave, if we could, set the stage for us a little bit. I want to get in and talk about your companies and the cannabinoid market. But if you could share with us some of your history with IBM and with Watson and what that foundation did to kind of lay the groundwork for what you're doing now.
Sure, thanks, Rich. And so you did cut into the IBM part quite a bit, and I think that's where I got my guts. A lot of people, will take the regular traditional jobs in a big company like that, and I come from an entrepreneurial background, so I really went somewhat intrapreneurial in the company, and I always worked on emerging technology, serious injuries that he ultimately died from, and we were working with Stanford, the very best people, and I felt I was a project manager for that, and I was seeing the quantitative side of the medical industry. I was seeing what the doctors were doing within their specific disciplines, but there was no intersection across the different practices on what they were doing. And I became the project manager. And ultimately, I went back to IBM and I said that the doctors are looking at this very quantitatively, but they're not looking qualitatively. So I started investigating, coming off of the side that was just database facts and numbers and saying, are we listening to the patient? Are we listening to the actual words and descriptions of what's happening with these patients? Are we looking at the pictures? And that's where the multiplicity of the data availability was. And then I said, I have to get into the holistic approach to it. How are we looking at this, not only from quantitative data, but qualitative data, true analytics, deep insights? And that's when I started working with Watson. And then I also had the opportunity to look at it and say, are we listening to all the healthcare stakeholders? Are we listening to conventional medicine, but also integrative medicine? Are we listening to holistic and, Chinese medical practice? What are we putting together for the holistic view of the patient? I didn't see that when I was seeing the treatment from my dad. So I actually tried to intersect and put this into the side of the business as I was working with Watson. And lo and behold, I loved my job, loved what I was doing, did acquisitions with companies that were coming with some real innovative solutions. And I said, I can't sit here anymore. Like, before I get too old, I have all these responsibilities and exciting things I could do. And I want to go do that. So I left IBM after a very lovely career and great people, and left some wonderful relationships, but I ventured out and I started working locally. So my doctorate's in smart cities, and a lot of it was around health services, public and private sector. How could they work together and do some real change management across industries? And there's so much transformation happening in the world now because of data. So how do we make it so we can impact the quality of life of people? And that's when I started doing consulting with agriculture. I live here in Santa Cruz County, which is close to Monterey County. We work with Salinas and all the growers of specialty crops. And I've done a lot of consulting with them around smart cities, smart data, and integrating that into health services. I mean, the best form of healthcare is eating healthy, right? And the best medicine is all those nutritional vegetables and fruits that we have access to. So I started consulting with them and pulling that data together. And as I started working with agriculture and smart cities and back to my healthcare traditionalist, I thought, there's little intersections coming together. I need to pay attention to that. And so I tried to keep big picture, but daily execution to make progress in the consulting businesses that I was doing. And similar to you, we had this experience. I started volunteering with hospice. I had been through that experience with my dad. I was very comfortable trying to make end of life comfortable for people. And I wasn't shied away from it like a lot of people just have a natural tendency to. And as I worked with hospice, I took on the role of president of the board of Hospice Santa Cruz County, which is very innovative hospice, very forward thinking, and a wonderful community of people very dedicated to their jobs. And monthly, we looked at the financial numbers of the practices. And I also worked with Santa Barbara and LA and other hospices. And I started to find out these medical costs for some pharmaceuticals and drugs and everything being spent at end of life, back it up to palliative care to make people comfortable, not necessarily end of life, but as they're going through that progression cycle. And then even back it up behind that and this chronic care. By the time people are 40 or 50, they're spending 50% of their budget on medical, or they're worried about having money, stashed away for any medical needs they may have because chronic disease is just taking over. And so I thought, how could we have a discussion about this? So of course I waited till I left Hospice Santa Cruz County because I had fiscal responsibilities and was really looking at supporting that organization. And when I left, in my consulting business, I reached out to all my old friends in pharmaceutical, payer, provider roles. And I said, can we pull together a summit of people? And we pulled together a summit of people that were chemists, engineers, pharmacists, doctors, surgeons, clinicians, nurses, practitioners in integrative medicine, organics, naturals. My business partner for this company, her talents come from organics, naturals before it was really ever an industry. And she did a great job of creating baby products for that were natural and organic, truly natural and organic, not just with a label. And so, we had this summit, we started talking to people, we said, how could we be more responsible about working with traditional, recognizing the efforts of pharmaceutical companies, recognizing the work that payers and providers do, but how could we bring all these people together, these stakeholders together to help solve the economic issue that comes around patient healthcare and the consumer, just spending their life on products and medical products and on treatments that they eventually can't afford, and it ruins them. And I've seen families ruined through some of the cases. When people go into palliative care or hospice care, I've seen families ruined from the cost just trying to pay to keep their loved ones comfortable. And of course, they're not going to go, nope, we're going to stop that treatment. They're obviously going to spend the money to make their loved ones comfortable, but it's really hard on families. So we had this conversation. And the fun part of it was 2 days, and actually I brought in some information and knowledge gathering that I had done before the summit. And at the end of it, I looked at Kenda, my business partner, who's the organics naturals person. I said, all of this great stuff that we found, all this information we got from all these stakeholders who really want to help somehow, this is interesting because I think it's up to us to do it. And so that was the birth and creation of InBOLD Inc. We thought, let's be bold about it. We had access to all of the very smart people in the non-traditional industry of marijuana, cannabis, hemp. And they, there's a ton of knowledge there that people who have, grown in the mountains for years or created products for medicinal purposes for years and just have been somewhat from them and learning from them and respecting everything they know. And then we've also respected the traditional branches on the medical practices side and conventional treatments. So the thought that we had access to all these people, we just couldn't stop. We thought we have a responsibility. And part of what was driving that responsibility was also my mom, who at the time was 90 years old, and she's got arthritis in her hips and she's uncomfortable. And my brother would come up from LA. He's like, Mom, we got to take you to the dispensary. We got to get you something. Of course, my mom goes, I'm not going to use Bob Marley in a bottle. No, that's just not going to happen. I love that you guys really, you kids are really like that, but I'm not going to. Now, my mom is Catholic, very religious, very traditional. She's a nurse for 50 years, a skilled RN. Even one of her last jobs was even working with chemical dependency. So my mom's like, you kids are crazy. And he said, Mom, remember how uncomfortable Dad was? And you can use this and we can get you products that aren't going to impact your brain function. They're not going to mess you up. You're not going to become a drug addict. But she was still very cautious. And so I said to her, Mom, if I go forward, and you heard all these people I talked to, you heard who we brought into the room and we had incredible conversations with. And these are some very well-known surgeons and key stakeholders in the medical industry who really influence leadership there. And I said, you heard them say, go forward, do it. And so my mom goes, okay, well, I support you. So my mom has been one of our clinical trials for this relief cream as we spent 18 months in the lab working on it. My mom is now the biggest advocate. And I said to her, this is so funny. She goes to church and she hangs out with all her Young Ladies Institute. The women in the 70s, 80s, and 90s are called the Young Ladies Institute, but they're awesome. And she says, I go there and I tell them, I don't have any pain because I'm using this relief cream. You have to try it. She goes, it's really interesting to take an entirely new approach to your healthcare. And so I knew when my mom was willing to change her opinion, and when my mom had such a positive reaction, I knew we were onto something, and I knew we had a responsibility. And my business partner also has an elderly grandmother. She herself has had back surgery. So we are the biggest advocates, but we also know we're doing this with purpose, and we have people who keep us in our lane, which is high quality, fast effectiveness, and safe, reliable. You can trust us, and we will do nothing outside of those parameters. So that's how we got where we are.
That's fantastic background. So, I know, like me, you're heavy into data, heavy into research, heavy into analytics. This is a more and more crowded market every day. What was the data telling you about that, cannabinoid products and the market, and what was missing that you were looking to fill the gap on?
So what was very interesting, and we are down a path right now of CBD, not THC. We may eventually get into THC because that is being used and has always been used on the medical side, both recreational and medical. And CBD, though, has no THC, which is the psychoactive, and we can go into that. But we are very CBD focused now for those folks who don't want to impact the brain receptors with the THC or the psychoactive. And the data was telling us, first, we looked at the marketplace. We looked at, and I come from the researcher educator side, which is my doctor degree. And I went and I did amazing research, and I found, you know, the US government has patents, and the people that are really getting the patents around CBD, THC, and cannabis itself are from the medical side of the industry or the public sector in some fascinating way, government. And so I thought, well, they're onto something. They're not letting the public in general know this, but if they're going and getting patents, that's a sign that they see the value in it. They're working with pharmacists and pharmaceutical companies who have incredible findings that they're not releasing because the hemp and marijuana products are not as expensive as some of the compounds and chemical compounds that synthetics that they create for the same care for their patients. So if you look at it from the lucrative side of the pharmaceutical industry, that's where they're going down that path of care. But when you look at what's available, as we all know, working in integrative, natural, holistic medicine, there's a lot of other options. And so the research supported that. And that was one of the reasons I looked into this, and we started this ball rolling. We started looking at technology, like I said, working with the people who have been in the industry, whether legal or illegal for years. They are smart, and there's a lot of knowledge to gather. And it was just saying, this is coming like a steamroller train, whether people are ready or not. It's like the consumer has decided and the medical industry needs to catch on. And so, but there is a major gap between getting there from a regulatory policy, even what's available in products, standards. There's no industry standards for how people are creating this. And even, you know, the tax structures, everything. This is such a new industry that it really doesn't have the foundational pillars that it needs. And so we thought, well, we can be part of that. We can, as we're creating our product, and let's create our product first so we see how this industry works, because you can't consult and help other people be successful until you've tried it yourself and have as a subject matter expert. So we went into this, and I can't tell you, Rich, where the gaps are amazing. We'd work with manufacturers, we'd work with chemists. They're like, oh, you can do that. They're leaving enough room for that, you know, and the government says it only has to be this much correct. I'm like, that's a huge gap. Like pharmacy would never, like, it just hurt my head to think about what people were getting away with. And so we said, we're going to create standards. And an example is our cream goes through quality test, third-party quality testing 5 times. It goes all the way from raw materials and supply chain, all the way through the production, manufacturing, and distribution. It goes through 5 quality tests with a third party, and it's down to the chemical panels, right? So we're making sure everything is legitimate for the products, and that's the kind of standards that we're putting in place. So when you do the research, you know the base of the product works. Marijuana hemp, it works. You've seen people have patents, that's the knowledge around it. You see they could create products, but they're not really. And you see nobody's creating any quality standards around the products. So it was like, okay, that's how we're gonna step in, we're gonna make this happen. And it hasn't been easy. It's been really hard when we give expectations, for example, to a manufacturer, and they go, well, that's not required yet, so we're not going to do it. We go, okay, on to the next manufacturer. We're going to stick to our standards, and we're going to make sure that what we put in this bottle is safe, and that any panel, any, you know, you can run the barcode on the back of it and see, you can run this barcode on the back and see the actual report for this specific product and the raw ingredients and the compounds that went into this and the effectiveness, or you can see the purity of it. So that's our motto. That's how we did it. And that's all based on knowledge, analytics, and we continue to do so. So we know what other entourage ingredients or active and effective ingredients should we be putting with the product in here. So not only did we use the nanotechnology and the way that we make the product, We use pharmaceutical grade CBD. We use a nano blend, and we can talk about that. It's teeny particles that it absorbs. We use water soluble. So it's, again, teeny particles that are water-based instead of oil-based that absorb, and they penetrate, and they become very effective very fast. And we use a technology to build it. And it's patent pending. So this is patent pending. And our new product that I showed you that is not labeled even yet, because it's still coming from the lab, is also patent pending. So we have a lot of technology that we spent, now it's 2 years, working on the actual product, the ingredients, and how to make them highly active and effective for people. And that's where all of the analytics comes in every single day to decide, do we go in this direction or we go in another direction with the product? And so we use that in our clinical trials and studies, and actually even in the acquisition of supply chain materials and who we work with.
Well, all of that is among the reasons. You just listed off a whole bunch of reasons why I'm so excited about this. So, I mean, first of all, with the group that we're talking to today, you're singing to the choir about natural things, leveraging the body's natural resources to get the job done. But knowing you, knowing your background, I knew that you were putting real standards in place, that you added literally, really added legitimacy to this market. Because it is a controversial space. So like your mom, your mom's first reaction, but underpinning this important area with the standards and the legitimacy and the assurance that people are putting something in their body that is good for their body. And I was reading through some of your research. I mean, this is actually the elements of cannabis are actually natural occurrences in our body.
Absolutely.
Right, and I wasn't aware of that until I was researching this a bit myself, and so it's all that's what this group of people is all about, is leveraging the natural healing capabilities of the body, turning those things on, and not putting some foreign thing that's been created in a pharmaceutical lab, to address it, and that's just a great story.
Exactly. One of the things that bothers me a little bit, but I understand why, is people are creating synthetic cannabinoids. And I'm thinking, if you have natural cannabinoids, let's work with those. And so that's what we do from our side. And, I understand it can be, a little bit of a wild duck, making sure that you get the right products and that it's grown in the right place. There's a lot more controls that have to be put in place for the life cycle of the product when you're working with natural products that have grown outdoors, and have been growing in dirt with chemicals or whatever it is. You have to make sure that you're using the best products and that it doesn't come out in the final product, that there's no ill or bad effects or ingredients in the product. There's no damage to it. There's no metals in the extraction process, other things like that happen, that it was grown in soil that isn't contaminated with any other metals or chemicals that we don't want access to. So we continue to test that way. And it's fascinating to me, that as late as 1990s, they found this endocannabinoid system in our body. Like, that kind of just blew me away when that was part of the research too, was, medical costs looking at this. And then it's like, wait, this endocannabinoid system that was named after the cannabis plant because it has the same chemical compound properties and it's running through our body. That's fascinating to me, and that it wasn't discovered till the 1990s. Wow. The name was given, and then the fact that you can look at these CB1 and CB2 receptors that are in our body and work with and complement, and the cannabinoid products actually trigger and start working together with that endocannabinoid system. So I was like, done. Like, this to me was a way to say, I have a responsibility to work with the traditional medical community, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, as you know, that we worked with at IBM, big pharmaceutical customers, big healthcare providers, payers all over the place. But wouldn't it be interesting if they found the value of this as well? Because, as I said, what's coming through in the transformation of healthcare is the patient as a consumer doesn't want to be addicted to opioids, doesn't want to have to take a $150 pill, or if they have to take that, they at least want to augment it with something else that's going to help bring down the total cost of their treatment and be safe and effective. And so as you research that, it just was, to me, a no-brainer responsibility to take that on and to see, could I keep that conversation going from the traditional side and the less traditional side, the more innovative side of the cannabinoid industry. And there's a lot of people creating good products in this industry. What I find is people are very supportive, because at the end of the day, we all want cannabis to go mainstream and to be adopted, like you said, to give it legitimacy, to make it adopted. I don't really love the old system of, thugs in suits selling weed. It's not what it is. THC and weed, as we know it, marijuana, was both recreational and medicinal. CBD is a pure compound, a phytocannabinoid that's in the plant that is really for medical purposes because it helps work with the endocannabinoid system. So CBD isn't like, oh, I'm just going to go get me some CBD and get high and have fun. No, CBD is actually a healthcare product. And that's what helps people to understand that they can integrate it or put it together with current products they're using and make incredible leaps and bounds toward their health. And while we're not allowed to say it heals, it's interesting that the whole endocannabinoid system is called a healing system, right? It works to make sure that with the endogenous cannabinoids in the system and the receptors that it has and the hormones that it triggers, it works to make sure we reach homeostasis, which is balance. It's balance of the body, and it kicks in when it sees abnormalities. It kicks in when it says there's some kind of physiological effect going on with this body. We need to get the endocannabinoid system active. And so isn't it nice that we can use cannabinoids or products with safe cannabinoids in it to support and help accelerate the healing and the wellness that our body can have? And so I love speaking with kindred spirits like yourself and the people in this community who get it. Everyone gets it. And it's our job to kind of help the other side of healthcare, who's looking at, I think, more economic factors or forgetting the patients at the center of all of this. To me, I love that challenge every single day. Sometimes it hurts because there's a power struggle there, but the fact of the matter is we're all doing it for the right reason, and that's what keeps us going as a team.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you could, so you created two companies, and you're running two different companies. Can you talk to us for a minute about InBOLD Inc. and Lassen Labs, and just give us the perspective on what they each do?
Yeah, so we created InBOLD Inc. as a parent company. So the structure is that we have products, we have consulting, we have education, and we have kind of a stakeholder influence with working with policy, regulators, law, legalities, and we work globally on some of those issues. And so those four segments sit in InBOLD Inc. And it's a women-run business. We put quality standards at that very level. And then we created Lassen Labs, which is our R&D right now for this specific product area. So we put a lot of the investment right into R&D and the first product. So we know exactly, like you said, how to create standards, how to work with the community, how to get our hands dirty in the business and really understand what it is we want to take and change in terms of policy and regulation, and how we want to influence the laws changing in the world so people have access to things. And you have to know the product, you have to know what you're working with. And so we created Lassen Labs and then created the products. And again, it was everything that we're going to do from the InBOLD level is going to be at this standard. We're going to be producing it in facilities that are safe. We're going to be using only the best raw ingredients. And the reason for InBOLD is there are other products we probably will come out with that help to focus on other specific areas of chronic care or disease. But we want to have the option to keep those separate entities working. And we also don't want to give up that focus, that maniacal focus on educating the public and educating the patient or the consumer who needs healthcare options and alternatives. So consulting, education, and legal and policy influence is really a core part of the InBOLD business. And then Lassen Labs is the specific product and the R&D that goes into that. We have 2 patents under the Lassen brand as well, as I shared. So, so making sure that we can apply the knowledge and the intellectual property that we gain into actual products is important to us. We don't want to just discover new technologies and new ways of working with the chemical compounds and then not actually make it available to the marketplace. So again, it wasn't necessarily space we were going to go into, and we thought, well, we can't not do this now. So everything seems to be with a sense of purpose. We go, okay, today we have to go do that, but we're very focused and we prioritize to make sure the Lassen Labs as our flagship brand is just going to get the best products. We have a portfolio of 12 products, and 6 are going into production. And we just want to make sure that it can get into the hands of people as soon as possible. We actually weren't going to launch this relief cream right away. We had gone through 18 to 20 months of research, and everybody that was in the clinical studies was like, you have to give us some, you have to give us some. So we said, okay, we're going to go ahead and launch it. Now, the funny thing is, Rich, we launched it February 22nd, and we all know COVID was kind of here, but we didn't know about it. So we had a launch party in Santa Cruz, and it wasn't 2 weeks later, I think it was March 13th, or actually 3 weeks later, then all of a sudden there's this, everything shutting down because of COVID. We're like, oh my goodness, we did not know, but we launched this product, and it has been incredibly helpful for people in COVID. So you can order it online, and that's what we thought, gosh, at least we got this one out to help people right away. And the spray that's coming out is also, you know, lift your tongue. It's sublingual, so fast absorption, water-based, and that is also for anxiety, stress. So the people that have been doing the trial for that are like, get us that product, get it to us. So we went ahead and we're doing it. We're getting them out there. And because there's just such a need right now. So, you know, one of the folks that was in the trial is a busy mom, and she's got a million things going. And I remember one day she said, I needed some of the spray I tried. I need some of that. You know, I got my car's in for repairs. I'm taking the kids to the person who's going to tutor them because their online isn't going well, and blah, blah, blah. And she listed off a million things. I'm like, you really do need the spray. It just kind of calms you and takes away that anxiety. And that kind of, I think, my mom calls it the jitters. She's like, as a 90-year-old, I kind of get these jitters on what's going to happen. What do I need to do? You know, is the gardener coming? Is the swimming? Whatever. And I said, you do need it. And so it just kind of gives that clarity, that balance, that focus. And that's just CBD. It's just a natural ingredient that gets into that endocannabinoid system, kind of takes away those stressors that the body is saying, you know, everything's coming, everything's coming to a peak. You need something, and a little spray, and it's like, but it's not, you don't have a high, you don't have any impact to the brain function. It's just this nice calm that comes over you and allows you to focus and let go of all of those other frizzles and frazzles that are keeping you from the focus that you need to have.
Don't we all need that?
Yeah, right?
I love what you said earlier about the work that you're doing on multiple fronts, because, you know, the big driver behind creating the Practice Experts Collaborative for us was to drive a revolution in healthcare. And you have to do that successfully. We have to realize that healthcare is a system, and we have to address all the pieces of the system. That means the products, that means insurance, that means all, and you know, the majority of the work we're doing right now is with the people who are on the ground, patient-facing people, doctors, nurse practitioners, health coaches, that are there, but simultaneously, we're also working on other pieces of the system. So much of the work we're doing is very much in parallel and with what you're doing.
That's why I thought, you know, I love the network already. I love the mission and why you built it. And when you were talking about some of the key members who have joined and where their mission is going, what they want, I just went, I found my people, you know. I mean, we'll work with all the other people. We all have a responsibility to work with the other people, but it's really nice to have that community of people where you feel safe and where you feel like you can speak your mind, you can speak your mission, and there's people supporting. That's so important, right? Yeah. And what I think you mentioned something, even on the call I was on last week, you were talking about nutritionists. I thought, these are people I really want to work with them. I want to engage them for the next products because I want to make sure we're meeting their needs as well, right? You want to make sure you're meeting the needs of the people who are working from all aspects. And we've worked with chiropractors at one stage, one phase of the trials. We worked with chiropractors to say, is this something that's going to help you? Is this going to help your business? How would you use it? We worked with therapists, post knee surgery, post hip surgery, clinicians. We worked with people. So this community, I think, is a way for us to share our knowledge with each other, but also help support and build each other to make sure that this does become just as mainstream as all those other parts of the industry you and I have talked about.
Totally. You just said something very important, and it's something that we've recognized and we think is important to the people that are in this collaborative is, a lot of people who are working in their practices and they're working in a healthcare system or they're working in a hospital, they aren't really safe to talk because they're supposed to be the experts, right, in their field. So they're walking around on a daily basis, seeing patients, working with their colleagues, and largely being very careful about what they're saying. And this is a no judgment zone. This is
exactly.
These are a bunch of kindred spirits where you can be free to talk about ideas and things you're thinking, and not have people say, "Oh, you're an idiot," or
right.
or whatever. So what you'd also said, was a great segue into what I wanted to ask you next. Is that how should healthcare practitioners be thinking about utilizing their these products? Because I'm looking around the people on here. I know everybody on here. Some are nurse practitioners, some are health coaches, some are MDs. So these are people coming from every discipline of healthcare, looking at through this prism,
right.
From their own angle.
Yeah.
How should they be thinking about utilizing your products with their patients?
Right. So we have a lot of different ways you could get access to the product. You can actually just buy the product. We have a little table for if you're a massage therapist, if you're a health nutritionist, and we say, if you're having a meeting, if you're doing those one-on-one meetings with your actual patients or customers, clients, then you can have one bottle and you take one dose. You can, this is also an accurate dose. That's the other thing about this whole business is it's not an accurate dose. Well, if you take one pump of this, you're going to get 16 milligrams of nanotechnology CBD, pharma grade. And if you take 2 pumps, that's 30. It's great. It goes fast absorption. So the first type of customer that we had when we first put this out was massage therapists, physiotherapists, nutritionists, and people who, psychologists, psychiatrists, and they just take one, they ask their patients or their clients at the end of a session, I had one woman who was doing myofascial work, and she says to her clients, do you want one? It's going to cost you like $10 or $15, whatever they put at their price to charge. One dose at 16 milligrams to whatever you charge, and they can put it on right there, and the person's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then the next stage is if the specialist wants to become an affiliate, they can have a code where they say to their clients, use this code, go order, and then they get the credit, and the affiliate can make, I think it's 25% off the product. So we have a structure. We are not in this just to, take all the money, but if we can get this out into the hands of the right people, we want them to benefit from using it as well. So you can use it per dose and make money. If you're working with clients one-on-one, you can send clients to get this that you recommend, and you, as an affiliate, you can get a percentage. We have channels, we have wholesale, we have distributor channels. Wholesale, you can buy a case and you can get a larger discount and have that in the shelves or at your offices. We found a lot of people aren't working necessarily from their offices, so that affiliate program works great, but we're working with retailers, we're working with other folks to get it in their wholesale. We have a chiropractor office that has a dozen on their shelf at any one given time, and they're calling, they're like, reorder, this stuff's great, our patients love it. So that's how we work in the different channels of distribution. We work with the individuals who either want to have access to it as a patient, they can just order it online and become a regular purchaser, or we work with people in different levels of business to help them put the model together best that works for them. And obviously, if you sell more in volume, then you will have a higher discount. But that's how we work with people. Multiple channels. They absolutely have given it. I don't think I've gotten any bad feedback from everybody, and that's part of the thing when you're having a tough day. You've just worked with, here we're working with Sacramento and regulators, and I come back and I'm like, oh, trying to get them to understand this and move forward is so difficult. And then they're like, yeah, but so-and-so called us and they let us know, it works with psoriatic arthritis or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I love hearing it. Somebody called and their post-knee surgery and it wasn't healing. They weren't able to move. They were miserable and they just put it on, and it's like, it's an amazing transformation. And that's why we keep going. So it's great. So we've had such gorgeous feedback that it keeps us going, even on the days when traditional healthcare is kind of like slamming you a little bit. But in the background, the secret to that is a lot of the traditional healthcare is publicly, they'll denounce it. Privately, they're either using it or asking you about it or telling you, keep going, keep going. So I had someone in a very high level in the US military on the medical side. And I said to him, I respect you so much. I'm coming from this traditional industry. As I start this business, am I ruining my reputation? Is this too big a chance we're taking? But I really believe that we can change things. And he said, I'm not going to say this publicly, but you keep going. There's people paying attention, and everybody knows that this is going to become a mainstream part of healthcare. And every single day that goes through my mind if I need to. I have incredible stories from, my dad was an entrepreneur and startup guy, and he had to break down some industries to make things happen, or some regulators to make things happen and change policy. And I feel like I didn't know it at the time, but as a child, I absorbed some of that I'm not going to say no attitude. So it sticks with you.
Well, we're delighted you are. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I want to open up the mics because I'm sure there's a bunch of questions out there. But so, how can the Practice Experts Collaborative support you? What do you want and need from us? How would you like us to see you as a support system for what you're doing?
So first of all, believe in cannabis. Second, and cannabinoids. As I said, we're focused on CBD, so we're not necessarily the THC side of the business, but let us know if you have those needs. We are paying attention to both aspects of the industry, and if you need any education around CBD, let me know. If you want to know how to use it, how to introduce it to your clients, what the use cases are, where you can get some education about that. We are currently building some education modules. I actually was asked by a university to put together an education program for their medical students who were going to be going through university in 2 years when they believe in that country everything's going to be legalized, and they would like their medical students to be knowledgeable. So we're building that capability to educate future providers and clinicians. And so if you need any education on how to use it, where to use it, what the benefits are, I'm happy to talk to anybody. We are going to, through your network, start putting education modules together. And I think that's where the support is really important. As I said, just to mainstream this as to provide the benefits that it's actually giving people. And we all want to get people off of the drugs that they shouldn't be using and change the perspective of healthcare in America, and what we can offer patients. And so that's how I want to work with your community, and I want to support everyone else. So, I totally believe I have an integrative medicine doctor. I, work with my chiropractor, and so I support this community because I understand the value of it. And so I hope that people either understand the value of the capability of cannabinoids, or if they don't, but they're interested, reach out. That's what we can do for each other in the network.
Oh, that's great. Well, our platform is totally built for education and knowledge sharing and all the rest kind of stuff. So
yes,
and you and I have talked about some interesting ways that we can do that. But so anyone who has any questions for Dr. Grave, just unmute your microphone. Everybody, we don't have that many people on, so you can all unmute if you want. But just if you have any questions you want to push and probe on this at all, feel free.
Yes, Dick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rich.
Hi, Chris.
Sorry, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing
And
great.
fascinating program. And I have a question for Dr. Grave. Have you tested in some kind of a laboratory system your products against existing medical theory, medicines, and also other therapies for issues like stress, anxiety? Not that any of us are going through that this year, 2020, right? There's no reason. We're all so happy and we don't need it. And both in terms, because I know there's a lot of side effects related to those, particularly on the medicine side.
Yes.
So how does
Thank
that?
you. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for asking that. And indeed we have no addictive properties. We do not have a lot of the side effects that you can hear in a commercial where they list, oh, this may, blah, blah, blah. We have none of those, no side effects. It's a natural product. And so thank you for that. That's actually one reason why we believe that it's more beneficial to be using our products than those products. Those addictive capabilities, the cost, the impact, and just the side effects that it has on your body, where this is pure natural and it works with the endocannabinoid system that is part of your biology. It's like a beautiful thing that people haven't discovered. So yes, and we did test, and we also tested about 70 competitor products because we wanted to make sure if we're taking this big effort and bringing out a product that is maybe a little bit more expensive than a lot of things out there, but 90% of what we purchased was not effective. It was just, there was no real cannabinoids in the product. It is horrible to see what's out there in the marketplace. And that's because that lack of standards. So we are up against, kind of all the pioneers and mavericks coming into a new industry to try and make money. But at the end of the day, if you use the product and it works, you're going to go back to that. And that's where we maintain that level of standard.
But I was just listening to something that talked about that. They said even on the medicine side, that like 50 to 60% of the benefit is placebo, if you believe. So, I mean, when the doctor says skeptically, so you're talking to a Western trained medical professional, said, oh, that's well and good, but people take it and they say it works, but it's like all those supplements on Amazon that have 4.5 to 4.8 star ratings. Do they all really work like that? It doesn't matter what one you're looking at, how much of that is placebo. And so what they're going to say is, interesting theory, but where's the proof?
Yeah, the proof is in the absorption of this product. And I've had several people who use prescriptive arthritis creams. They use a lot of post-surgery healing creams, and they haven't been effective. And they use ours, and I tell them, I'm not married to this. I need you to, honestly try it. As we did with the trials, we had clinical trials. And so you have a control group also. The fact is it works. I've had people say, you know what, I can play tennis now. I can play golf and actually twist at my waist because my lower back, is the inflammation. This is, you can't say cannabis heals, but the inflammation is somehow improved, right? So the things we're not allowed to claim are actually written in U.S. patents. And so we're quoting the U.S. patents when we say this is how it works. It reduces and it mitigates pain, it inhibits the inflammation, and it protects your body from the free radicals floating around in there. And, it provides a neuroprotective layer. And that's proven. That's proven at a science level. So that's, again, my research side that kicks in, which is, as you said, some of the traditional medical practice will say it doesn't work. And then you go back to the scientific patent that says this was tested outside of us. This is third-party knowledge, and scientists have said this works. So
are those studies published on your website? Can we go look at?
I think they may be on the science page, but if not, we write a lot of articles that link to the actual studies.
Okay,
and
thank you.
If it's not there, send a comment and we'll put it out there for you.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Those were great questions. As I was listening to you and that question, there's a clear migration in the healthcare industry right now from the old kind of model that we all grew up with, of just trust your doctor, take whatever he or she says, That's how we got ourselves into the trap of the pharmaceutical centric model that we've been in for the last 70 years. And the migration now is trust myself, which means get more educated and listen to more and more people. And you know what's really fascinating to me is what I'm seeing emerge in the collaborative is people who are health coaches or nurse practitioners or physician assistants who are in many ways they're taking that set. Let's talk about allopathic medicine for a second. Traditional healthcare medicine, we all know there's like a 9 to 10 minute time frame that they spend with patients to have a profitable practice.
Right.
Some of my early work in the technology industry, understanding that piece. So what the health coaches and the nurse practitioners do, and they're picking it up from there and helping educate their patients over time on how this stuff works. So the patients are getting more educated. Health coaches and nurse practitioners. I see we have Joe Coburn out here. Joe and Ralda actually are moderators in our health coaches group in the collaborative, and they're helping to educate me on a lot of this stuff. So it's really fascinating is as that shift is happening in the healthcare industry, this is perfect to be able to arm them with things that can help them, not to contradict what their doctor is saying, but to supplement what their doctor is saying and say, look, this can help with your side effects. This can help you with those issues, you know, that.
And, you know, that's why we did the accurate dosing as well, because you don't know what you're getting. And so we actually chose topical and sublingual because those are the fastest, effective, and safest way. And our whole motto is trust pure health. So that's one of the things. We are not doing ingestibles yet because we just don't know the impacts in the studies on what it does to the liver. We don't want to harm one part of your body to heal another part. So we haven't really fully gone into that, but I am working with integrative nutritionists, and we want to understand that before we fully jump into that to help people, because we know in some instances it's easier for people to maybe eat a tablet or something. So we're working with them. And then we do not do vaping. Like, I am so against vaping because, again, why harm your lungs to heal some other part of your body or to make another part of your body comfortable? So, you know, I understand other people may believe in it, and that's absolutely, you know, I support them if that's what they want to do, but we're looking at this to provide safe products. And for that reason, the medical industry is accepting us and working with us a little more. I have doctors who are now recommending our product because they can say to their patient, you're going to get this much with one dose. Like, you're going to get one pump and it's going to give you this much. And so people want to know, what's a safe dose? What is the quality of the product? Those things are important. And for any medical doctor to recommend something to their patients, they want to know they're not recommending something that it doesn't have that quality. And that's why a lot of them aren't saying to use it. But we do have doctors now saying it and actually recommending, have affiliates that are working with our program that are doctors that are saying, I don't want to push this stuff, but it's a huge change to be working with the medical industry, again, who's sending references your way. That means all of our work together is working. As I was on one of your calls a couple weeks ago, where the nutritionists are actually working with the doctors as well. People are starting to understand it's a holistic approach, right? With the W in front of it, a holistic approach, the whole thing. And so that is very supportive. And I mean, I have stories that I could tell forever of specific situations. And one that just completely touches my heart and reminds me to stay in this industry is working with the traditional side of healthcare. That's so important to us as a business as well. We don't want to discount anyone. We want to make them all work together, but we do want them to see the benefits of the intersection of all of our practices together. That gets us a lot further. And I have one instance where I have a very, very dear friend who had a stroke, and now he's the most, you know, off the grid type of person. And, you know, when I was working at IBM, you work for the man, you know, he would always say, you work for the man, you work for the man. I'm like, but there's a reason. Like, it is also supporting some very necessary things. And I never have to change my core values to do that, because I can see where it helps. And when he had a stroke, we had a very important conversation, and he said to me, you know, I think I want to talk to you about the stuff that you're doing. And I said, yeah, because you do see there was a need for the traditional side. They got you the medicine that the pharmaceuticals had developed and researched. It's very expensive to help you repair from that stroke very quickly within a couple hours. You needed them to have the life that you have now. And then you can work with us to make sure you have a comfortable quality of life every day by just using the balance lotion, the balance creams, and the sublingual that we have. And when he saw that intersection, he's like, yeah, I can't put down the man or the corporate or the pharmaceuticals or the medical industry. They saved my life, but I also know I can integrate some of the other medical options. And that was, I told him that's why I do what I do. I mean, people need to see it's not all black or white. There's such a huge gray space that we all live in.
That's a beautiful.
Yeah. That was a really good day when we had that conversation. I just felt like I didn't want to have to defend why I worked on one side of the business or the other side. You just work all across wherever you need to.
I actually had a hemorrhagic stroke myself in 2008, and thanks God I had like no residual effects later on. But I know exactly what you're saying, and you know, knowing your with the story you just told, I could see how I could have used those products over the years. Joe, did I see you on mic? Unmute your mic. Do you have a question?
I'm unmuted. Hi, Kathleen. Hi. In functional medicine, a lot of times we add things in low and slow, but I've heard with CBD, sometimes you need a low dose to kind of awaken the endocannabinoid system. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we work with people and say it depends on your comfort zone. Start out with one pump if you want to, and then move to 2 when you're comfortable. We do tell people you can't overdose on it. Like it's not a compound that's going to make you sick or ill and overdose on it, but you don't want to lose the effectiveness of it. So just don't use half a bottle at a time, because you'll have to take a break after that and then come back. So use a regular dose is what we say. And so, yeah, if somebody needs to get comfortable with it or start to understand how it's impacting their system, I always say start small and then scale up when you're ready for it. But I have one person who said, oh, I started with half a pump because I really didn't know. And then the next day I'm using a whole pump, and then I'm using 4. I'm like, cut it back to 2. So I really want them to use it accurately. And now she uses 2 every single morning, and her life is great. So you're absolutely right. People have to start with what they're comfortable with and how the body can start to acclimate to the change that they're going to go through, and then just regulate it and have that level of homeostasis that they need.
Okay, because I have heard from some other practitioners that they start actually at a higher low dose, and then after 2 weeks of that higher dose, then people taper down to like a half of that.
Yeah, there's no direction. It's not something to get comfortable with. Like one of the golfers I was telling you about, he smeared it on right away. He's like, the next day I could play golf. It was amazing. It was a miracle. And I said, again, try and create a regular practice from it. So again, it's not a chemical that's going to do damage, so you can't overdose on it. We have Dr. Les on our medical team who answers questions for folks all the time. So if you have any specific questions on how to approach it with any one patient or someone's needs, you can always ask. But I always say to people, just start slow, but don't go so low that you can't feel it. You want to have some effect from it. And again, because we're pharma and nanograde, it is effective pretty fast, but it's very safe. And then there's those people who get products and they're like, it just doesn't work. It's like, because there was nothing really there were no real active ingredients in that product. And right. So you really want to be careful what you're using. But I do say to people, get it and start with 1 pump and then see how that works for you. Do you want to go down a little? Do you want to go up a little? It's a matter of getting comfortable with your own care practice.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
So I see us coming up on the hour, and Dr. Grave, I know you slotted us in graciously in a very full day. So let's wrap this up. Dr. Grave is in the collaborative. So if you have any follow-up questions, you want to talk to her about this stuff, you can reach out to her there. And if any of you who are watching this either live or on replay, if you're not in the Practice Experts Collaborative, this is the kind of thing we do. This is the kind of value we bring every week. So I would encourage you to join us and join the healthcare revolution, and let's push this stuff forward on all these amazing fronts. Dr. Grave, thank you so much.
You bet.
This was hugely valuable, even more fun than I knew it would be. So appreciate you spending time with us.
It's just the start. Thank you so much. And if there's anybody who wants specific education modules, please let us know. We will work for it to meet your needs as well. So thank you.
That sounds so
Thank you.
good.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rich, for today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
See y'all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.